Okay, my thanks to Kate. We're going to keep questions until the end. Our next speakers are Della Keating and Joanna Finnegan, an archivist and a librarian working in digital collections at the National Library of Ireland. And their presentation has me, and probably all of you for the rest of the day, humming Bruce Springsteen. It's entitled Born in the USB, Digital Collections at the National Library of Ireland.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Kate, for that timely reminder of why we do what we do. Joanna and myself are presenting here today on digital collecting at the National Library and how it contributes to the theme of this conference, which is inspiring and supporting research. We know change is not new. The human race has invented, innovated, and fought its way through history in order to survive. In the past few decades, technological advances have allowed for the widespread dissemination of digital content. It's everywhere. For the National Library of Ireland, our mission to collect, protect, and share the recorded memory of Ireland is just as relevant now as it was in 1877, the year of our founding. The world around us has changed, but our mission is constant. So on a very basic level, we collect digital stuff because, like Everest, it's there. But like Everest, getting there is a bit of a steep climb. In the first half of the presentation today, I am going to talk about how the library, over a period of years, has had to change in response to the challenge of digital collecting from a strategic and organisational point of view, and how our own understanding of researcher requirements has influenced that response. I'm also going to give you a brief introduction to our most recent pilot project to show how we have put that strategic and organisational change to best effect. Joanna will then discuss our firstborn, digital collection, commenced in 2011, the National Library of Ireland Web Archive. This collection is at a more mature point in the collecting life cycle, and amongst other things, she will show, in keeping with the theme of the conference, the difference being at a mature point in the life cycle can make in terms of the new and innovative research opportunities this presents. As an organisation starved of resources, we struggled to find a way to deal with the challenge of collecting digital material. We had to try a number of approaches until we hit our stride, and it felt at times, and indeed it still does, like a roller coaster journey. With the benefit of hindsight, it now feels less like Vladimir and Estragon, who are left waiting for Godot, and more like Bilbo on his journey to the Lonely Mountain. No one told the bankers or the IMF that the National Library was in the middle of an existential crisis, trying to avoid the developing chasm of a digital black hole, and I'm not sure they would have cared. Like all of you, we lost staff numbers, huge corporate memory, and we experienced severe budget cuts. So our first approach to this challenge/opportunity was to say in 2011, digital is not different. We said this for a number of reasons. We were receiving approaches from people with collections of digital photographs and offers of email. Government was urging its departments to save money by publishing in digital form, and indeed in some cases publications were in digital form only. All of this content was exactly what we considered within the remit of our mission to collect, protect and share the recorded memory of Ireland, even though it was in a different format. Our digital is not different approach stemmed from our consideration of researcher requirements in terms of what we collect and how this could inspire and support research. We felt that researchers in general are interested in continuity of content, and in the vast majority of cases tend to be format agnostic. They don't come into the reading room and say, can I see that floppy or what's on that USB? So with this principle to the fore, we initiated a programme of work to bring the National Library, like a newborn, into the 21st century, and also to deal with 20th century legacy issues in a systematic way, adhering to the principle of digital is not different. But it turned out that digital is not different was simply the first step on the road to dealing with the digital challenge. It enabled the startup of web archiving, of which you will hear more about in a moment from Joanna, but for a number of reasons couldn't support the cross-departmental work required to deal with special and published collections in digital form. So in the words of Beckett and not Bilbo, it was time to try again, maybe fail again, but fail better. In 2015, we tried a different strategic approach. Digital is different. This was in recognition of the fact that the how we were going to collect this material was going to have to change, even though our overall mission had not changed. For our heavily invested stakeholders, such as our parent department and our board, for whom our mission is constant, framing strategy in terms of the how piece was of more use. For our other stakeholders, our researchers, we knew that their requirements could only be met if we actually managed to collect anything, which, though it was working out up to a point in relation to web archiving, it hadn't worked out in relation to special or published collections. So we wrote in big writing on our strategy document, digital is different. And I know Sandra's here, and no, obviously we didn't do that. What we actually wrote revolved around the following objective. At the National Library, we want to implement new approaches to collecting born digital content for Ireland. This objective recognises the challenge of collecting unique born digital material as something new to the library that requires a different approach, but represents no change in our overall mission to collect, protect, and share. Strategy-wise, a change had occurred, but what implications did this have for our organisation, and what did this mean for the role of researchers in our thinking? Looking outside of our organisation, due to our late arrival at the digital collecting party, we were in a position to learn from those who had gone before us in terms of best practice. For example, we learned from the approach taken by Emory University in the States, albeit on a far grander scale that we could only dream of, when they acquired the Salman Rushdie archive. The acquisition team consisted of librarians, archivists, and technologists, and they had numerous cross-departmental committees looking at different stages of the process. We learned from the AIMS project, which was interinstitutional as well as involving informational professionals and technology professionals, and we also learned from Jackie Dooley and Ricky Irway of OCLC many things, including how to integrate archival expertise into the management of born digital library material, and how to walk before you can run. Internally, we recognised that given our staff shortages and our need to continue to keep our doors open to the public, there were two things that we could do to optimise our chances on delivering on our strategic objectives and ultimately delivering for researchers. We set up a department devoted to the developing, managing and preserving of the National Library's digital collections, both born digital and digitised, and it will come as a major shock to you all to learn that we called it the Digital Collections Department. Staffing comprises a mix of information professionals, including librarians and archivists, and technologists, including software developers. The second organisational decision we made was to continue to use the pilot project approach to getting this work off the ground. The reasons behind this pilot approach were that we had figured out by now, it took us a few years, we couldn't wait to get all of our ducks in a row before we started to deal with offline and online digital material. Ricky Irway, in her report on Walking Before You Can Run, refers to being able to sleep peacefully at night, because you can get started without expert staff, without extra funding, and without extensive training. For us, there was never going to be a time of plenty in terms of additional resources. We were going to work with what we had, and our decisions around restructuring into a single department was a recognition of that. We knew that we could leverage the knowledge and expertise of our colleagues in special collections and published collections to help get pilots off the ground, and we knew that the pilot project approach really worked, because it did for our web archiving collection, so we were comfortable with it as an approach. We also knew we could design a pilot that we could eventually scale up to deal with the myriad of preservation issues presented by digital collections, and that doing a pilot would give us the opportunity to upscale at a more manageable pace. I will now conclude by giving you some information on our newest digital pilot. The overall project objective is to complete a pilot project to cover the full management life cycle from acquisition to online delivery of a special collection with a range of content types. As you can see, it's scheduled to run from January 2017 to May 2018. And from a staffing point of view, we are very fortunate to have added a digital archivist within the last year to our team. And she is in a position to work on the pilot with us, bringing valuable expertise with her from the world of digital preservation and data management. The pilot project itself is broken down into 4 different stages, and we have completed stage 1 of the project, which consisted of our digital collections team and our special collections team coming up with criteria and a shortlisting process to produce a group of potential pilot participants. And we are now seeking to approach these participants and then commence working our way through the remaining stages of the project. At this point, because as with all pilots, these things are always subject to change, we have defined these stages as comprising the following activities: surveying and identifying suitable content types in consultation with the participants, acquiring it and all that entails on the side of the participant and on the side of the library, ingesting it and making it available, and what that might look like. We hope to report on the project as we go, high up from our roller coaster, through all the usual channels as momentum gathers. I will now hand you over to Joanna, who will take you through a digital collecting activity that is at a more mature stage, and she will share how this maps to researcher engagement, inspiring and supporting research potential in a more developed collection.